All right, we've got the 13-man Buffalo Plus sports team together. We're talking a little bit about the upcoming draft. And Dan, you put out a poll talking about what the biggest need is. What was the results of the poll and what surprised you about it?
Yeah, number one need. That was quintessential. What do you want Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott to address? The number one, I had edge rusher, wide receiver, cornerback, or offensive line. And runaway favorite here, almost half the votes were towards that edge rusher. Now, that didn't surprise me all that much. That we talked a lot about all offseason about the Bills increasing their sack numbers and everything like that. But a lot of people wrote in saying running back, that the Bills really need to address their running back need in this draft, and that surprised me.
That is surprising considering the fact when you look at the Bills roster, like they know who their number one running back guy is. They need a guy in terms of depth. So I don't look at that and say that is the number one overall need. Pass rusher totally makes sense, but running back behind Devin Singletary, that's the spot to fill.
All right, so I'm going to play a little devil's advocate on this because when you look at their roster right now, I think they have a viable backup, pretty viable backup in every position, right? Depending on what you want to look at.
Yes.
Who is the second running back right now? I did a piece on Buffalo Plus. You can read it right now. And on their roster right now behind Singletary is TJ Yeldon, who they didn't want on the field last year. And we all love Christian Wade, but he's a rugby player first. So they don't have a guy. Now, to your point, Dan, does that mean you go out and draft him in the second round? I don't know. That's pretty high. But unless they sign a veteran, and I listed some of those veterans, guys like Devonta Freeman or Carlos Hyde, you make one of those moves, it might make things different. But they don't really have a backup at running back.
But I just don't think that this is the first thing that they're worried about. Because like you said, Mike, they have their running back. Now, you can have, I mean, Frank Gore, Mike, I know we like to take jabs at Frank Gore, but he wasn't great. So even if you get a guy that wasn't great and you just fill in there to give Devin a breather, you're still going to be fine at that position. There's bigger needs and bigger holes to fill.
Let's go back to last year when Frank Gore was second half of the year, Frank Gore, and he was just another guy who couldn't get it done. You could have used a little spark when Singletary wasn't on the field.
That's definitely true. But I think the way this offseason is shaping up and with how weird things have been, it might not be bad to have a guy that has plenty of NFL experience out there. So I think there's a lot of things that are going to make this offseason a lot different than others in the past. And maybe Frank Gore with his experience and already knowing the Bills and that offensive system from Brian Daboll, maybe that at this point makes sense.
Isn't it different, though, as we talk about this team trying to piece things together?
Like a real playoff team?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying nitpicking because they aren't that good, but they are a playoff team. They're a quality team, and they have good players. Like when they're picking up Darrell Williams, they're not picking up a starting offensive lineman. They're picking up that swing guy, right? Most of the time they brought players in, except I would certainly say for Stephon Diggs, they brought guys in who are going to compete or be backups. Mm-hmm. And that's a very different thing for this Buffalo Bills franchise.
I mean, I was a little surprised to see that they ran away, that the poll was so heavy on, because I thought the poll would be a little bit more balanced. I was a little bit surprised to see half the votes going for an edge rusher when they've addressed some of those needs in free agency. And I thought, so a few more people would want that wide receiver that I think you can find in the second or third round or find some offensive weapons. But to go still adding on to that defense was interesting.
I think, but that's the staple of a Sean McDermott team, right? When you think about it. And that's what's really led this Buffalo team to the playoffs. Look, Josh Allen improved it a year ago, but we're not, who are we kidding if we don't say it's been run by the defense? So I get them wanting to bolster again the defense, but I do think it's interesting the fact that this team is now fine tuning. Just 2 years ago, I mean, think about when they were going after a quarterback. Who would it be? Baker? Is it going to be Sam Darnold? Is it going to be Josh Allen? To now where they're at, it's such a different feel for this team. When we talked to Brandon Beane at the Combine, he said, now this is the really hard part, is getting those little players, those little pieces to fall into place and make this a team that's going to be exponentially more successful.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see as they move forward. We're getting closer to the draft, and those free agents are out there. You see how quiet it's been right now? I think it's going to stay kind of quiet. Then after the draft, you'll see some more signings. Hey, remember, stay on BuffaloPlus.com. We'll have content leading up to the draft, free agency, and our opinions on what's going on with the Bills and the NFL. Thanks for watching. Keep tuning into BuffaloPlus.com.